Until You Fall is a fantasy hack-and-slash roguelite that brings procedurally generated melee combat to the world of virtual reality. Today I want to talk to you about gameplay mechanics, art style, and the overall experience of playing this game so you can decide if it's the next VR game you want to get your hands on. Let's jump right into this armor-wearing, sword-wielding episode of Virtual Reviews. Melee combat is the bread and butter of this game, and it's definitely its strongest point. The speed at which you can swing your weapons is affected by the size of your weapon choice, so if you want to hit light and quick or hard and slow, you can. The arms and weapons feel physics-based, almost like Boneworks, but they don't lag behind nearly as badly when moving quickly. The flow of the fights is a good balance of blocking and attacking with the exciting occasional dodge. You have to break down an enemy's guard before you can really do health damage, so the game rewards you for effectively blocking and taking opportunity hits when you can. Just swinging your arms around without purpose is not going to get you very far. You get prompts to show where to hold your weapons to block incoming attacks that are very clear and obvious, but don't take away from the immersion or the art style. Obviously, blocking will keep you alive as well, so you should definitely be doing that already. As the game gets more and more difficult, the block patterns become more complicated and fast-paced, making the fights incredibly intense. Once you do get an enemy's guard down though, breaking their defense and landing your critical, health-damaging hits is incredibly satisfying. The visual impacts and sound design in these moments are the real payoff of these combat encounters.
Returned to dust.
Also, once you start encountering some bigger and more powerful enemies, you get these arrow prompts to know when and which way to dodge, which really gets your body moving and makes you feel like you're really in danger while playing. All of these elements combine into one of the best melee combat experiences I've ever had in virtual reality. Roguelites are all the rage right now. Hades and Returnal, just to name a couple that I've played recently, but it's not a genre that I've had the pleasure of experiencing in virtual reality until this game. It's called Until You Fall because you falling is inevitable. Roguelites are characterized by their multiple run gameplay loop with some persistent improvements to your character, weapons, or abilities, making the game gradually easier the more you try. In this game, you choose your weapons before you start a run, and that's what you're going to use for the entire instance. Whenever you finish a room, or in this case I suppose an outdoor area, you are presented with 3 crystals, of which you can choose only one. There are a variety of upgrades that can help you in your current run, or you can just collect a sum of upgrade currency to help you upgrade your weapons and help you with future runs. This is one area where, in my opinion, this game falls a little short. When you're playing Enter the Gungeon, the items and weapons you find as you play drastically affect how the current run is going to play out. In Hades, you have to choose a weapon ahead of time just like in Until You Fall, but the boons and upgrade hammers you find significantly change the gameplay between runs. Even Returnal, which has a similar problem to this game in my opinion, changes gameplay up enough with its different weapon choices within the runs. Despite changing or improving the weapon abilities you have on each hand, there isn't a lot of variation between the runs. Even switching between the weapons doesn't feel different enough to feel exciting. Variation is extremely important in games like this, and I just feel that Until You Fall could do a little bit better in this area. Now, most of the game is just you standing toe-to-toe with enemies and fighting them, but you do have to move around between fights and the rooms, so let's talk about Locomotion for a moment. There is a dash that you can use like teleportation if you can't use smooth locomotion, but it's also a combat mechanic, so it's got a bit of a cooldown between using it. In combat, you use it to dash into a fight and do a little stun on whichever enemy you're dashing into, or you can use it to dash away from certain types of attacks. It's a great addition to the combat encounters, but you can also get away with using it as your main locomotion. If you are comfortable with smooth locomotion, however, you can use the left joystick to walk, but herein lies one of my other complaints. If you don't go through every single setting and just play the game on control defaults, the locomotion direction is based on which way your head is facing the moment you first move the joystick. It doesn't update as you turn your head while walking, which means if you push forward on the stick then turn your head around, you will keep moving in the same direction, which is now backwards to you. You can change this behavior in settings, making it update orientation live as you turn your head, but it took me an embarrassingly long time for me to realize this, as the default in most games is the other way around, at least in my experience. Outside of that, the walking itself is fine, just a little slow. Not a huge deal in the early rooms where combat is pretty stationary, but it will start to affect your play as the game gets more difficult. Until You Fall has a pretty standout visual style, which is fantastic in the sea of generic looking VR games out there. The game's style is basically a bright, neon, almost synthwave take on a magical fantasy world. The environment consists of a lot of crystal structures and angular plant life like vines and trees. Even the seemingly manufactured structures take inspiration from the angular flora of the world around it. The enemies themselves are really visually interesting, which is great because most of your playtime is spent right up in front of them. They look like the jagged trees themselves got up and picked up a sword, which is visually more interesting than your typical zombie, monster, goblin, or whatever you typically fight with swords. They also vary in size quite a bit, which is great for conveying how much of a threat they are. The base fodder enemies are slightly smaller than you, so they aren't intimidating at all, but they just get bigger from there until they are towering over you, showing you just how much of a challenge they will be to fight. From what I've seen across platforms, the art style translates well between lower and higher fidelity, looking great no matter the technical limitations of the platform. So if you're looking for a VR roguelite or just a good fantasy game to swing a sword or axe, I definitely recommend getting Until You Fall. Maybe I just haven't heard of many, but it's the only roguelite I've played in virtual reality, despite it being one of my favorite genres. It's $25 US on Steam right now, and I think it's worth full price. But if you don't want to take my word on it for that much money, absolutely do not miss it if it goes on sale. The amount of playtime you'll get out of it alone is worth it in my opinion. In my experience, unless it's multiplayer or social focused, a lot of VR games lack replayability. But Until You Fall, being a roguelite with an incredibly satisfying gameplay loop, will keep you playing run after run until you're too tired to swing your arms anymore. Thank you so much for watching my review of Until You Fall. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, and if you don't want to miss my future videos, click the bell icon and select all while you're down there. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and let me know what you thought in the comments down below. If you have any suggestions on a VR game I should review next, let me know about that in the comments as well. Thanks again and have a good one.